May 27th, 1962. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Memorial Day weekend. The volunteer firefighters gather at the edge of town, near an old strip mine pit that's been converted into a dump. The plan is simple: burn off the trash before the holiday. They light the garbage. Flames lick up into the spring air. After a few hours, they douse it with water. The fire is out, or so they think. What they don't know is that beneath their feet, flames have found a crack. A 15-foot wide hole hidden under the garbage, leading directly into abandoned coal mines that honeycomb the ground beneath Centralia. Within days, smoke begins seeping from the earth. By the next week, a foul, sulfurous odor hangs over the town. The firefighters return. They hose down the hotspots again and again, but the smoke keeps coming back. Because this time, they haven't just set trash on fire. They've ignited something far worse. Something that has been burning for over 60 years. Something that will likely burn for another 250. Something that turns Centralia into a ghost town. This is the story of how a single mistake created an underground inferno that consumed an entire community.
If we want to save this community for our posterity, we've got to do something now to save it.
Centralia, Pennsylvania, 1960s. A coal mining town in the heart of Pennsylvania's anthracite region. Population, 1,100. Working class. Close-knit. Generations of families who dug coal from these mountains for a century. The town had been founded in the mid-1800s on rich coal deposits. By 1890, over 2,700 people lived here, almost all supported by the mines. But like most coal towns, Centralia rode the booms and busts. The Great Depression hit hard in the 1930s. Mines started closing, people started leaving. By 1962, Centralia was smaller, but still alive. Families still lived here. Kids still went to school here. People still believed in this town.
Happy birthday to you!
Beneath Centralia, however, lay a hidden threat. Decades of mining had left a labyrinth of abandoned tunnels under the streets. Some were only 50 feet below the surface. Others dropped 300 feet into the earth. All of them connected, creating a vast underground network filled with leftover coal. A powder keg waiting for a spark. The spark came from something mundane: garbage. By the early 1960s, Centralia had a trash problem. With fewer jobs and less tax revenue, public services had suffered. The town had multiple illegal dumps scattered around because they couldn't afford proper waste collection. In an attempt to clean things up, officials decided to use an old strip mine pit on the edge of town as their landfill. It was 300 feet wide, 50 feet deep, cut directly into coal-bearing earth. Pennsylvania had passed regulations in 1956 specifically to prevent this kind of setup. Landfills in strip mines were known to cause mine fires. Officials were supposed to line the pit with non-combustible material, clay, dirt, anything to create a barrier between the trash and the coal. An inspector even warned the Centralia Borough Council. He told them the pit had exposed coal seams, holes leading into the mines below. These needed to be filled before they started dumping garbage. The council acknowledged the warning. They used the pit anyway. The safety measures were never fully implemented. Memorial Day weekend arrives. The Borough Council has decided to clean up the landfill in time for the holiday. The solution: a controlled burn of the trash heap. On Saturday morning, Centralia's volunteer fire department arrives at the pit. They ignite the garbage. Flames climb high. Smoke billows. After a few hours, once the trash is burned off, they douse everything with water. John Coddington, who will later become mayor, is one of the firefighters there that day. They leave believing the job is done. May 29th, 1962. 2 days later, smoke is rising from the pit again. The fire crew returns. They hose it down a second time. But over the next week, the landfill keeps smoking. Small flames keep appearing in different spots. Each time the firefighters come back, they spray water. They even bring in a bulldozer to stir up the debris, trying to reach buried hotspots. During one of these excavations, someone notices something disturbing. Where the bulldozer has pushed aside garbage, there's a gaping hole in the pit wall, about 15 feet wide. It had been hidden under the trash. The hole leads directly into the old mine tunnels. No one had filled it with clay. No one had sealed it. An open doorway into the coal seams beneath Centralia, and the trash fire had found it. Residents start noticing strange smells around town.
Carbon monoxide is backing up into people's homes. We're now talking about a fire that can have a very severe, devastating effect.
On July 2nd, the pastor of St. Ignatius Church complains to the borough council. His church sits near the landfill, and for weeks now, a noxious, sulfurous odor has been seeping from the ground. According to accounts, he described the smell as unbearable during services. The council realizes what's happened. The trash fire has spread into the mines. They notify the coal company that owns the mineral rights, but in their letter, they describe the fire as being of unknown origin that started during a heat wave. Everyone knows what really happened, but admitting they started it means admitting liability. Meanwhile, beneath Centralia, the fire is spreading through abandoned tunnels, moving through coal seams, fed by oxygen flowing through the mine's countless shafts and cracks. An underground fire is burning, and it's not going to stop. August 1962, the Pennsylvania Department of Mines draws up an emergency plan. Excavate the burning coal. Dig it out before it spreads deeper. A contract is awarded to Bridie Inc. for $20,000. In mid-August, bulldozers and steam shovels arrive. The plan seems straightforward: dig a massive trench, remove the burning material, create a firebreak. But excavation workers quickly discovered the futility of the effort. They dig down 10 feet and find hot coal, shovel it out. The next day, the fire had moved 20 feet ahead of them. Like chasing smoke, the equipment is too small. Crews only work daytime shifts. Over Labor Day weekend, work halts for 5 full days. Worse, every time they expose burning coal to open air, they're feeding it oxygen. By late October, they've removed nearly 60,000 cubic yards of earth. The money runs out. The fire is still burning beyond the excavated area. The first attempt fails. Almost immediately, they try a new approach: flood the mines. Contractors drill boreholes and begin pumping a slurry of water and crushed rock into the underground passages. Then, Pennsylvania winter arrives with a vengeance. Equipment operators faced brutal conditions. Water lines froze solid overnight. Pumps seized up in the cold. Crews spent half the day just trying to get equipment working again. Operations grind to a halt for weeks at a time. When they manage to pump, there's another problem. They don't have enough slurry to fill all the mine voids. Partially filled tunnels leave channels through which the fire migrates around the barriers. One worker later described it as trying to fill an ocean with a garden hose. By March 15, 1963, they've spent $42,000.
Centralians are skeptical of this proposal. They view it as yet another expensive but unproductive study, which will not guarantee their safety or security.
On April 11th, new steam plumes appear 700 feet east of the contained area. The fire has outflanked them. Engineers huddle over maps and sketches. They draft something more ambitious: a massive trench encircling the entire fire zone. A barrier that would isolate the burning coal from spreading further. The price tag, up to $277,000. In 1963 dollars, that's a fortune, equivalent to several million today. State officials later admitted they looked at that number and looked at the 2 previous failures. The governor's office didn't want to throw good money after bad. They convinced themselves the fire would burn itself out eventually. Later in 1963, all active firefighting is abandoned. Centralia's underground fire is left to smolder. For the next 15 years, authorities try half measures: venting gases here, minor excavations there, injecting fly ash into mine voids. Between 1962 and 1978, they spend an estimated $3.3 million on these efforts. None of it works. The fire keeps creeping through the old coal seams, sometimes pausing at rock barriers, other times finding new fuel and surging forward. Most residents go about life as usual. Some even find unexpected benefits to living above a slow-burning coal fire. Kathy Godinsky discovers she can harvest tomatoes from her garden at Christmas. Kids find that certain yards never need snow shoveling. But not everyone is amused. By the mid-1970s, the signs of disaster are becoming harder to ignore. Steam rises from cracks in the ground, even in the dead of winter. Patches of earth stay snow-free all year. A persistent haze hangs over parts of town, and the smell of coal fumes lingers in the air. Vegetation starts dying in strips above the burning coal veins. Headaches, dizziness, fainting spells, especially in basements and lower levels of homes. By 1978, responsibility shifts to the federal level. The newly formed U.S. Office of Surface Mining starts monitoring air quality in Centralia. They buy out 34 of the most affected properties near the landfill. But there's still no decisive action on the fire itself. Many in town cling to optimism. The fire is a nuisance, sure, but Centralia will survive. It always has. Then comes 1979. John Coddington is now the mayor. He also owns the local gas station. One afternoon, he's doing routine maintenance checking fuel levels in his underground storage tanks. Standard procedure. He lowers the dipstick. When he pulls it out, the stick is hot to the touch. 172 degrees Fahrenheit. His gasoline is near boiling temperature. Flammable fuel. Underground tank. Heat source directly beneath. He shuts down the station immediately and calls the fire marshal. When word spreads through town, the mood shifts. If the ground beneath the gas station is hot enough to heat gasoline to dangerous levels.
My major concern is to try to get the fire out where it's at, dig it out, and preserve the town intact.
What about the ground beneath homes, schools, the church? Residents begin to understand they're living on top of an active inferno. February 14th, 1981. The day the earth swallowed a boy. Valentine's Day, cold and clear. Todd Domboski is 12 years old. He's playing in his grandmother's backyard on a winter morning, enjoying a day off from school. He's walking across the yard when he hears a sound, a crack, like ice breaking. Then the ground opens beneath him, a sinkhole, 4 feet wide. But when Todd looks down as he falls, he can't see the bottom. He plummets into darkness, the earth literally swallowing him. He drops until he's chest deep in the pit, his arms flailing for anything to grab onto. His hands find tree roots jutting from the wall. He clings to them with everything he has. Below him, the hole drops 150 feet into a burning mine shaft. Scalding steam billows up around him. Toxic gas rises from the depths. The heat is intense. He can barely breathe. Help! He screams. Somebody help me. His 14-year-old cousin, Eric Wolfgang, happens to be nearby. He hears Todd's voice, sees him disappearing into the earth, and sprints over. Eric pulls harder, yanks him up, inch by inch. Finally, Todd comes free. Minutes later, officials arrive to measure the gas levels in the sinkhole. Lethal concentrations of carbon monoxide. A few more seconds, and Todd would have lost his grip. Would have fallen 150 feet into a burning mine shaft. There would have been no way to recover his body. The image goes national overnight. Newspapers run the story. TV news covers it. A 12-year-old boy nearly swallowed by the earth, saved by his cousin at the last second. Centralia is suddenly famous for all the wrong reasons. The incident galvanizes public opinion. Something has to be done. Now. Congress can no longer ignore what's happening in Centralia. In 1983, Congress finally acts. $42 million is appropriated for Centralia relocation. The federal government begins making offers, fair market value for your property, help relocating to safer areas. It's voluntary at first, but the message is clear: the fire can't be stopped. The town can't be saved. Time to leave. Most families take the offer. They pack up their lives, say goodbye to neighbors, leave homes that have been in their families for generations. Moving trucks line the streets week after week. Families load furniture, photographs, memories. Houses empty one by one. By 1990, over 1,000 people have relocated. The population drops from 1,100 to just over 60. Homes are demolished. Businesses are torn down. The post office shuts down. The zip code is revoked. Centralia is being erased, block by block. But not everyone leaves willingly. Pennsylvania's governor declares eminent domain over all properties in Centralia. The state claims ownership of the land. Residents have no legal choice but to vacate. A group of holdouts refuse. John Lokitis Jr. is among them. He stands on his front porch as demolition crews work down the street. He was born in that house. His family had owned it for generations. "I'm not leaving," he tells reporters. Legal battles ensue. Lokitis and other residents fight in court for years to keep their homes. They lose. Appeal. Fight again. Lose again. The state's position is clear. The fire is too dangerous. The ground is unstable. Everyone must go. In 2009, John Lokitis Jr. loses his final appeal. He's evicted. His house is demolished shortly after. He was one of the last to go.
Someday Centralia may be, completely gone from the face of the earth, but there will always be a record here of what used to be here, and at least in a little form.
Refusing until the very end to let the fire erase his family's legacy. Tom Hinoski, another longtime resident, walks through the abandoned streets one final time before leaving. "Every empty lot has a story," he says. By 2010, fewer than 10 people remain, most holding life estates that allow them to stay until death. By 2020, that number has dropped to single digits. Today, in 2026, Centralia is effectively abandoned. The last residents have either passed away or moved on. The town that once held 11,100 people is now a ghost town in every sense of the word. The fire still burns beneath the ground. Steam still rises from cracks in the earth. Highway 61, which once ran through Centralia, has been abandoned. Today, Centralia, Pennsylvania, stands empty, and experts estimate it could burn for another 250 years before it exhausts the coal seams. What began as a routine trash burn morphed into a slow-motion disaster that wiped an American town off the map. The total cost failed firefighting attempts, relocations, buyouts is nearly $50 million. But the real cost can't be measured in dollars. Todd Domboski is in his 50s now. He survived that Valentine's Day in 1981, but the memory never left. "I still think about it every day," he said in later interviews. "For years, I had nightmares about falling. Even now, when I walk across grass, part of me wonders if it's solid, if it'll hold." The families who left carry their own scars. They scattered across Pennsylvania to other towns, other states. But Centralia stays with them. The fire made Centralia infamous. It's been called Pennsylvania's modern ghost town. The eerie landscape smoke rising from cracks in an abandoned highway, ground too hot to touch, inspired the aesthetic of the 2006 Silent Hill film, bringing Centralia's tragedy to a global audience through horror cinema. The town became a symbol, a reminder of how a single mistake can spiral into catastrophe, how bureaucratic delays and half measures can doom a community, how nature, once unleashed, doesn't care about budgets or politics or human timelines. But it's also a reminder of resilience. The people of Centralia fought to save their town. When that failed, they fought to save each other. They left with dignity. They remembered. And those who refused to leave, like John Lokitis Jr., who fought until 2009, became symbols of resistance against forces beyond their control. Centralia is not alone. Thousands of coal seam fires burn around the world. In China, India, Indonesia, some larger and longer burning than Centralia's. But Centralia became the cautionary tale, the high-profile case study, the town that was consumed by fire from below. It changed how America handles abandoned mines. It spurred research into underground fires. It reminded us that the earth beneath our feet is not always as solid as it seems. And it taught us that some fires, once started, can outlive entire communities. The Centralia mine fire is still active, still spreading, still burning after more than 60 years, with potentially centuries left to go. The town that once stood above it is gone, but the memory remains. In the smoke rising from cracks in Highway 61, in the empty streets where children used to play, in the stories of families who lost everything, in the voice of a boy.
I seen smoke, so I went over to see if it was the mine fire, and when I did, I just fell right through.
Centralia stands as a stark reminder. Pay attention to the warnings. Fix the problem before it's too late. Fight for what matters, but know when to let go. Because sometimes, the ground beneath your feet isn't just unstable. Sometimes, it's already gone.